She sat alone on that freezing platform, her wedding dress hidden beneath a tattered coat, until a stranger rode out of the blizzard and changed her life forever. The wind screamed across the empty Montana train platform like a living thing. Snowflakes danced through the air, sharp as tiny knives. A young woman sat alone on a wooden bench, her gloved hands trembling, her suitcase at her feet. Her name was Evelyn Harper, and she had traveled 1,000 miles from Missouri on nothing but hope and a letter from a man she'd never met. Her wool shawl was too thin for the mountain cold, and her lips trembled as she whispered, "He'll come." He promised he would. The conductor had already disappeared. The train, a fading whistle in the distance. The world was silent again, except for the snow crunching beneath her boots when she shifted nervously. Minutes turned into an hour, and with each one, Evelyn's heart sank a little deeper. She had sold everything she owned to become a mail-order bride, answering an ad from a rancher named Luke Carter. His letters were warm and kind, full of dreams about a home, laughter, and the wide Montana skies. But now, sitting there in the bitter cold, she couldn't help but fear. Maybe it had all been a cruel joke. Then, through the swirling snow, she saw him. A tall figure riding out of the storm, coat flapping like a dark banner. Luke Carter pulled his horse to a stop beside the platform, breath misting in the air. His eyes, steady and kind beneath the brim of his hat, met Evelyn's frightened ones. He swung down and tipped his hat. "Ma'am," he said softly, "you must be Miss Harper." Evelyn nodded, barely able to speak. Her teeth chattered as she whispered, "Yes, I thought maybe you weren't coming." Luke's face softened. Without another word, he slipped off his thick leather coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. The warmth was instant, spreading through her trembling body. "I'm sorry," he said. "Had to ride 20 miles through that storm. Didn't figure the train would be early." For the first time since morning, Evelyn smiled. A small, fragile thing. "Thank you, Mr. Carter." "Call me Luke," he said. "We'll be seeing a lot of each other after all." He helped her onto his horse, his hands careful and gentle. As they rode through the snow, Evelyn leaned against him, her fear slowly melting away with every steady heartbeat she felt through his chest. By the time they reached his ranch, the sky was painted in shades of purple and gold. Smoke curled from the chimney of a small wooden cabin nestled among the pines. It wasn't much, but to Evelyn it looked like heaven. Luke lifted her down, carried her suitcase inside, and started a fire. "Ain't fancy," he said, rubbing his hands near the flames. "But it's warm and it's home." Evelyn walked around the little cabin. There was a table made from rough-hewn logs, a small bed with a quilt, and shelves lined with books and tools. "It's perfect," she whispered. Over a simple meal of stew and bread, they talked for hours. Luke told her about his life, how he'd lost his family in a fever, how the ranch was all he had left. Evelyn shared her own story, how her father had died in the war, how she'd been left to survive in a world that offered no mercy to women alone. Somewhere between laughter and silence, something unspoken passed between them. Not love, not yet, but the beginning of something real. That night, as the wind howled outside, Luke heard the horses panic in the barn. "Stay inside," he told her. "I'll be right back." But when he stepped outside, the storm hit harder than before. Snow stung his face as he fought to calm the animals. Suddenly, a roof beam cracked under the weight of the snow, and Luke was knocked to the ground. Inside, Evelyn heard the crash. Without thinking, she ran out into the blizzard, the hem of her dress whipping in the wind. "Luke!" she screamed. "Luke!" She found him half buried in snow, barely conscious. With trembling arms, she dragged him inside, stripped off his soaked shirt, and covered him with every blanket she could find. For hours she sat by his side, feeding the fire and whispering prayers. When he finally opened his eyes, weak but alive, she smiled through her tears. "Don't you dare leave me, Luke Carter. Not now." He reached for her hand and whispered, "Wasn't planning on it, ma'am." Morning came quietly. The storm had passed, leaving the world buried in white. Luke lay weak but smiling as Evelyn poured him coffee. "You saved my life," he said. She shook her head. "You saved mine first. When you gave me your coat." He reached out, brushed a strand of hair from her cheek, and said softly, "Reckon we saved each other then." Outside, the sun broke through the clouds, painting the snow in gold. Luke slowly stood, leaning on her shoulder, and opened the cabin door. Together they stepped out, hand in hand, their breath rising in little clouds of hope. For For the first time in years, Evelyn felt she belonged, not just in a place, but in a heart. Luke smiled down at her and said, "Welcome home, Mrs. Carter." She blushed, her eyes shining. "I like the sound of that." The wind was still cold, but neither of them felt it anymore. Love, after all, burns warmer than any fire. If you loved this heartwarming story of courage, fate, and true love on the wild frontier, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional cowboy and western love stories. Your support helps us keep bringing these powerful tales to life.